Hi everybody, this is Lock Malintz. I'm here today. I'm going to answer the video response to R1, and it's 10 questions this month. It's hashtag April R1. And as usual, since you don't get to see my face, I've got a deck of cards. I'm just going to flip through the cards so that you don't get bored listening to me. This deck is the new tarot, it was published in 1974. I like when people do that, and it seems like they don't really think about what the names are going to mean. But the deck is a lot of fun. I was very happy to get it. Let me see. Okay, I think there we go. Okay, question number 1, your primary reason for pulling out cards. You know, actually, I've been thinking about this question, and I think my primary reason these days are comfort. Pull out the cards, they make me feel better. They remind me of when I was a reader. I'm sure that if anybody has watched, I know that I've had, I think, like 1 or 2 viewings of one of my videos, but for those few people who have seen it, they know that I don't read anymore for health reasons. And I have a question. If anybody sees this, or enough people see it, and people who do videos, how often do you have to repeat things before you can just assume that people know? Because I don't want to say every time, oh, I have health reasons, you know, I don't read anymore, because it just makes me sound like I'm self-pitying, which I'm not. Sometimes I am, but that's normal. So anyway, I pull out the cards. They're a very comforting thing to me. I like pulling out to get an answer. I do pull a card or do a small spread every day. When major events happen, I pull out more cards. There are several people that I read for. I've just, I have a new friend that I ran across, and we're going to read for each other, but she understands that it's going to be kind of a timely thing. You know, it's when, like, if we get together and I can't read, she's going to be cool with that. So, yeah, I pull them out for comfort. I love tarot. I think about tarot. Tarot's kind of, I see a lot of life through the cards. Okay, so number 2, do you use tarot in other ways other than for reading? Yes, I do. I use them for, well, you know, question 2 and question 3 are going to kind of like blend right in together. Question 3 is, if you use tarot as part of magical practice, can you share some examples? So I'm just going to mush those 2 questions together. I use tarot for spiritual gaming. I use tarots. I think tarots make great altars if you don't have altars. I use it for spell working and storytelling. I use them in ritual. I use them as inspiration for artwork. I use them as inspiration actually sometimes for jewelry. And the jewelry, the artwork, they don't necessarily look like their tarot card involved, but the inspiration is there. And the other thing was, can you use some examples? One example, and this is kind of one of my go-to thing, is spell working. And let's say that you're laying out. Yes, I am a tarot nerd. All my used decks pretty much stay in order. When it's time to reshelve a deck, it goes back in order before it heads back to the shelf. So that's not random. So you've laid out a spell work, a tarot spell, and you've got everything going, and here's the spell. What I like to do is to take a smaller deck and lay it on top, and that gets all involved in the spell work. All the energy goes into here. And then let's just say this was for, you've got a big interview coming up. So you lay out your spell work, the interview's going to go really well, you've got everything going right. What you do for the interview is you take this set of cards with you to the interview while these stay connected to your spell work altar. So that's one of the ways that I use it. I also do things like, I always tell people that if you have a deck of cards with you, you've got all the magical tools that you need. You can take out the aces and use them as the to call quarters. You can pick God and Goddess cards if that's what you do, or you know, your inspirational cards, or a God card. You can whatever the focus of your altar is, you can find cards that, oops, sorry about that. You can find cards that work. Okay, that was a couple examples. I do a lot more, but question number 4. How do you explain what tarot is when someone asks you? Look at that Tower card, isn't it cool? And the Star card, I love how she's just a silhouette. Woohoo! And the Moon card coming up. Oh, well, I guess you can see the Moon card right there. Okay. There was this person. His name, I don't know if anybody knows this deck, the Creative Whack Pack by Roger Von Ock. I don't know how to say his name. He was this genius guy who as he went through college, he actually was writing a program on creativity as he was going through it. So he was the first person to ever graduate with this degree, and it had to be like approved by boards and all this stuff. It was it's like a very fascinating read. But when I'm trying to explain to what tarot is, I tell them about Roger Von Eck. And he once said that if you're creative enough, if you have a problem and you're creative enough, you can go to the phone book and read out of the phone book and get answers. So to me, that's what tarot is. You can go to the tarot and read into it so many things. If you're looking for answers, you can find answers there. If you're looking for advice, you can find advice. If you're looking for just even a different way to look at things, which is a big part of what Roger Von Eck's philosophy was about, as I recall, that it will just, if nothing else, if you sit down for a reading and somebody talks about your problems through this deck, through a deck of cards, if nothing else, it will give you a new way to look at it. And, you know, a new perspective is always a good thing. So that's usually what I say. What's your favorite spread and why? Right now, my favorite spread, let me move these again, and I'm going to use this little mini Hanson Roberts deck again. My favorite spread is, I call it a 3x3, and the 3 across, there are 2 different ways you can do the spread. 3 across is, this is your raw material, this is your process, and this is the final product. Now what you want to do is you want to go down with, this is your inner world, this is your outer world, and this card represents your, this is your inner world, this is the world you reside in, this is your outer world. So as you fill these cards in, it really is just a grid from there. So if you're wanting to know, like, inside deep kind of shamanic spirituality, in your present time, you go to the present, like actually, if we're going to do deep shamanic stuff, let's go to your inner world and your process. If you're wanting to know what to do, what materials you have, Actually, this is your raw materials. If you want to know what your process is, what to do with what you know shamanically, you go here and you go down there. And that gives you an answer. And actually, I don't pick one of these three. I usually talk about every position. You know, this one down here would be your inner world outcome. You know, this one, well, yeah, this one here would be your raw material in your current world. So it all, wow, I don't know if that even made any sense to anybody, but it all makes sense, and it's a really wonderful, wonderful spread. There's a simplified way to do this spread where this is your raw material, this is your process, this is your final product, this is your inner world, this is your world now, and this is your outer world. So it just is, this one right here is the world you're in now and your process. And then other than that, you just read these as laid out. Does that make any sense? I hope it makes sense. If not, I am happy to answer any questions. And if I'm very visually oriented. If I could sit down and talk to somebody and do that, but I'm afraid if I do that right now, it would take an hour really to explain any better. But that hopefully gets you to understand at least a little bit of what my favorite spread is now. And why it's my favorite spread is because it just answers so many questions. I did the spread because years ago, I see things are getting better now, but years ago, all anybody ever wanted to talk about 3-card spreads was past, present, future, past, present, future. And I don't have a problem with that, except that most tarot readers are pagans, they're witches, they're spiritualists, they're numerologists. If you're going to do a 3-card spread, there's so much more than just past, present, future. So I started collecting these triads of things that it could be, and the spread that I just talked about is actually 2 triads. It's your inner realm, your middle realm, and your outer realm. And the one across actually came from and it's will give you so many answers if all you do is use these 3. It actually came from my brother, who's a mechanical engineer, and I was talking one day to somebody, and he was in the room, and I was talking about the triads, and he was like, and I was saying, anything that you can break down into 3s can be a tarot spread. And he was like, oh, you mean like raw material, process, and final product? And the hair stood up. Even now when I'm talking about it, I can feel tingles in the top of my head because it's just such an amazing spread. You start off with your raw material. The first card, this is your raw material. This is what you have to work with. The second card, the middle card, is your process. It's what you do with your first cards. You take your first card, and sorry, Fry, come on. Philip J. Fry is in my, sorry baby, on my table. There we go. Sorry about that. He's a sweetie. Okay. So the second card is your process. It's what you work with. And then your last card is the final product, which is the outcome. It's like the best outcome that you can get. If you take your raw materials and do the process that you're supposed to do with it, you get a final product. So it's one that I use, even if all I'm doing is like a Celtic cross spread, I throw out those 3 cards at the end. If somebody just wants a quick reading, that usually just will hit the nail on the head and tell people what they want to know, or at least what they need to know. Enough rambling about that. Name a famous current living person who embodies one of the following cards. Hermit, Justice, or the Star. Wow. I don't know how, we're like really nerdy at our house. And I really want to say like Joss Whedon, but actually, I don't know if anybody reads, and there are different worlds of famousness. So this is a literary famous, I think. So a lot of people who don't do tons of reading may not know, but I'm going to go with Margaret Atwood. Margaret Atwood's works, and she to me represents justice. If you read her books, they're they're beautiful, wonderful reads, and she delves deep into, without seeming to, she delves very deep into the hows and whys of people's actions. And there's always an understanding at the end of her books of how people got to where they were. So to me, I think that kind of embodies justice, because you understand why people did things, how they came about. You also understand why what happens to them in the end happens to them. So she's a wonderful author. Wonderful, wonderful. If nobody's heard of her, actually, Handmaid's Tale, since Trump has become president, Handmaid's Tale is becoming very popular, and it was a movie. But that's Margaret Atwood. Have you ever read In a Crowded Place, and how did it go? I have been dealing with tarot for millions of years, and I'm sorry, somebody's walking in the hallway. It's like 3 o'clock in the morning. It should be pretty quiet in the house, but other than the cats. So, crowded places. Yes, I have done music festivals, psychic fairs. I've read in bars. I've done pagan festivals. Very noisy, very chaotic. And I find that people who read in those situations, you get into a zone. And I used to get into this place where the energy just kept flowing. I don't know where it came from, but you take several decks, and you change up your decks, and you meet everybody as a new person, and there's a wonderful kind of energy. I don't know that you get the same kind of readings, at least not from me, as a one-on-one reading, and I actually prefer one-on-ones. But for anybody who reads tarot, I would suggest at least once sign up for a reader at a psychic fair or something. It's very, the energy's just wonderful, wonderful. And a lot of people, sometimes like people will crowd around and want to see what's going on and stuff. And sometimes, like if you have friends, because you'll be sitting there and telling somebody stuff, and they'll kind of be like, I don't know if that's true, I don't know if that's true. But if they're there with like their friends, the friends will always, be knocking them on, like, oh, you know what that's about when so-and-so did this and so-and-so did that. So friends are like sometimes a big help in readings. I kind of miss doing it. I will never do it again, I don't think, in my lifetime, but I kind of miss doing it. Do you have a ritual around your reading? Yes, I like to cleanse the area. I like mugwort and sage, or incense. I'll do incense. I like to light candles. I have to have a drink. Now, I'll be honest, sometimes the drink is wine, but just because you talk so much when you do a reading, water suffices. I'm so big on saying, I'm going to try and quit that as these go, but bear with me and we'll see if they get better. I like to have crystals out, and the crystals depend. I have this is like, let me see if I can get him underneath this guy usually sits on the table. And then depending on what kind of a day it is or what I'm reading, I'll have different, like, sometimes actually the crystals are for me to help me read better. They're to help keep the energy up. Sometimes, I have amethysts and things on the table for the connection so that I can keep going. Oh, and there are two chants, and they're pretty common chants, that especially I will just do by myself, and it's not really, doesn't really create ritual space, but it helps put me in the mindset. And the first one is air I am, spirit I, no, air I am, fire I am, water, earth, and spirit I am. I'll chant that several times. And then when I'm done with the reading, the earth, the air, the fire, the water, return, 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 return. I don't sing well, so hopefully you guys got that all. The next question is, let me grab a deck. Let me see what deck I got. The next question is to draw a card to answer what is my next best step. And this, I talked about this deck in the last one. It's the Shaman Net. This is my current love among all my other loves, but it's a very, very deep deck. Okay, draw a card to answer what is my next best step. So let's see. Shuffle, 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 shuffle. I got the Eight of Staves. Okay, you know, my next best step, I'm thinking maybe I have maybe a few too many irons in the fire, which is true. I hadn't really thought about it in that way, but my brain lately has been, I've got some paperwork that I'm months behind on, and I hope nobody who ever knows about that paperwork ever watches this, because I don't want them to know. So I've been trying to catch that up. I've been trying to start this, and I've been trying to think of new ways to get better at doing some videos. I would like to be part of the community here. Everybody's so sweet. You're all so sweet. I am getting to move my bedroom into... we've lived in this house for a long time, and the bedroom, the good bedroom, has been used for many different things. Other people have got to live in it. It was our temple space for a while. But anyway, I've got a housemate who's moving out, and I'm finally getting the room, and I'm very, very excited about it. So, yeah, I think time is moving a little bit too fast for me. I think I'm not supposed to get caught up in what's going on. Wow. Is it telling me to organize? I think I have to organize my time. So, rats. But I'll get on it. I will get on it. If anybody else had any things, jump in on that, because there might be something really obvious I'm not seeing. Okay, the last question is, how do you think you can personally improve your reading skills? One thing that I'm doing is I'm thinking a lot about tarot lately. I am playing around it. I'm evolving tarot in my art, and I'm very, very excited about this process. And I have said probably in both my other videos, and again, how often do you repeat things before they just sound dumb in videos? I don't have that many. If this is the only one you're ever going to watch, some of this information may be pertinent. But anyway, I'm involving it in my art. I'm at the present moment, there aren't really tarot cards in my art, but I'm very excited about where the art is going, and tarot is a big influence on that. It is going to lead, though, to me thinking about cards and actually what they mean to me personally. And there's been a saying in the tarot community that there really is no soulmate deck unless you create your own. I'm going to do a few paintings. I'm going to see where it leads. I have a style that is very, it's kind of like a neo-expressionist kind of style. So I don't know how well it's going to work. I've been looking at other tarot art, and there are some people who approach this style. I think if I was a watercolorist, I could do it pretty well, but I'm not. My first love is oils, and when I can't work in oils, I do acrylic. And they're such different mediums, so I don't know. I'm going to see where it goes. And I don't really do a lot of readings anymore, so I don't know that it's going to improve my reading skills, but it is definitely going to improve my connection to tarot, which is, improve the connection to my tarot, improve yourself. And as far as reading goes, it will all these experiences will accumulate, and they will all have something to do with my reading when I read again. So that's it for now. Thank you, Arwen, very much, and for the 1 or 2 people who are ever going to see this. Thank you too. Lots of love to you.